Good morning. This video will be pretty quick because I'm covering something that I promised one of the people that follow how I build these things wanted to see. First thing, we'll talk about it real quick before we talk about that. The color, here we go. We're working on this window. This is design. My client grew up looking at this particular window in the farmhouse of two of her uncles. And so anyway, she wants one built for her. And let's see, what is it, 43 and a half by 15 and a half. And that's what we have this thing laid out here, 43 and a half by 15 and a half. And we got to try to, this glass I could not exactly match. This stuff's 100 years old, but I came pretty close with a white cloudy mix. That stuff right there. Okay, here I was able to get a little closer. The green's not going to be a real problem, but this background here and out in this bullet shaped thing is right here. There you go. I like that. So that is what I have right here. We'll talk about this in just a minute. And then these two half circles here are right there. So we're real close there. And so I've got those marked out here to get them cut. This is Yakagani. So is that. Okay, and then the next thing. This went a lot slower than I anticipated. Normally, I just fly through a piece like this. However, this Yakagani is a handmade glass, and that stuff will vary in thickness. And so sometimes some of these sheets get a little bit thicker than other sheets. That's a consideration, and particularly if you're working with real small pieces. This stuff is just a little bit thicker than the normal 3mm or 1/8" glass, which would be this stuff. This stuff's so easy to work with, and the reason it is because it fits so easily into the lead cane. Well, this stuff, that's another game. And this stuff hardly fits into the cane. And what I mean by that is that this space that we have to put the glass in, this 3mm opening here, this glass is a little bit over that in some cases. So what I do is I just, you can't see it here. I could pull that out. I'd really rather not. It's just hard enough to get it in there. I bevel the edge of that glass on both sides so I can slide it into that cane and then get my sizing up right. I bet that, I don't know how long that took. It took a long time to get these two pieces set, the exact size I need them pushed into the cane. Okay, what the main thing, thrust of this particular video is working with Strongline. Now, in the old days, a window like this, they would have just put reinforcement bar or rebar right across this thing. Oh, heck, they used to just go right up the middle, and it didn't seem to matter whether you could see that rebar through the design or not. This original didn't have that issue. But anyway, and I thought, well, maybe I need to reinforce this thing a little bit, even though it's only 15.5 inches across. So we went with Strongline. And what Strongline is it's a, hope we can see this, it's a narrow piece of steel. There it is at its widest point. And then you can see how, let's get it over here where you can see it. See how thin it is. All right, now what you do with it is you build it into a copper foil window. I've done a lot of that right there. And then you just go, here's the foil. We'll talk about it here. That's the glass, obviously, and there's the foil there. And here's the glass and the foil here. And then you just build the Strongline right into it. Then when you just solder over it, that makes that area more rigid. Okay, now, so laying this way, obviously it's pretty flexible. But laying this way, it gets rigid. So I cut this piece right here. And what I want to do, I wanted this continuous run across here. So what I'm going to do, I wanted to add the Strongline from this point up to here. Let me back out of here so you can see. and then I'll just put the little bend in the Strongline and go up to there. And that'll put a nice little bar that you can't see right in the center of this window. Make it a little more sturdy. I don't think the window might be able to get by without it, but I just soon put it in there. So let me mount this phone and we'll put this one in there. Okay. And we'll raise this thing up a little bit. All right. So, you see what I have right here. And all I've done is I took this piece and just ground a little bit off this end so I could compensate for that slight bit of thickness that would be added to the inside of this lead cane. So now all we're going to do, and you can bend, now since this particular part of the window's curving that way, I just left this little curve here, and then you can straighten this stuff out. You can bend it back this other way if you want to. So you can do what you want to with it. Now it is springy because it was in this package round, right? So if you pull it out of there, it's going to be round because that, you know, was the way it was packaged. So you can bend this back any way you want to. And in fact, we'll probably bend back somewhere in that area so you see what we've done there. And it'll go up to conform to the line on this window. So all I'm going to do now is just set it inside that lead cane. There you go. And since I don't want it hopping out of there, now I'm going to make sure I pushed it down into the cane. Okay, and then we're just going to take this piece of glass right here. And don't forget I ground this off to compensate for that. And we're going to go down, do this straight so it doesn't get cocked. Look at this. Here we go. I'm still cocked just a little bit. There it is. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So now I can look. I can barely see the tip of that Strongline right down in there. So there's the Strongline in. That's all there is to it. Can't see it. It'll disappear. You solder this in there. And all that'll do is just add a little bit of, what do you want to call that, longitudinal strength to the cane here. And then as we move up the piece, we could take it all the way to there if we wanted to, but I would need to break that lead cane right here. No big deal. You'd never see it anyway underneath the solder. And there's all kinds of schools of thought about where you break lead cane. 40 people are going to tell you 40 different things. A lot of people wouldn't want to put a break here. They call it the hinge. You're creating a hinge for the window to flex in. After I get through soldering this thing and cementing it, I'm not worried about it. So there's if you talk to, like I said, 40 people about lead cane, how to do it, you're going to get 40 different answers. It just depends on what works for you and what you are used to. I don't think I'm sure there's some wrong ways. Like I say, and I've said many times, not saying my way is the right way, just the way I do it. Okay, so the next thing here will be to get these two halves here ready to go, and then I'll come in here and set all this, and then these other halves would sit. And I should mention, don't want to get ahead of myself here, I'll put these two here in before I set this, because it's easier to get this in. So I'll get that in there, then I can go ahead and grind and make this thing fit. This is some tough fitting because these lines need to flow. These are larger pieces of glass. So any mistakes or errors that you have when you're working with this larger pieces of glass, multiply. If it was a little small pieces, you can, have a little bit of an error. You can compensate for it in the next little piece next to it. So sometimes what appears to be easy is not all that easy. And when you get a piece like this with a lot of large pieces in it, you've got to really watch what you're doing because everything has to fit. I've said this before, I'll say it again. If I had the normal way of building this thing is to cut all of these pieces at one time. Maybe there are people out there that are a lot better cutters than I am, but if I tried to cut all of this at one time and then come back and try to put all this together, I would not be able to get the fits or the fitting that I'm getting here. Because I'm oh, you can see that bevel. Let me take this. Which leads me, you know what, I better put a bevel on that side. There's a bevel right there. You can see that little bevel that's cut, and I don't have one here. I'm glad I showed you this because I need to come back and put a bevel on that because I want that lead cane. Let's see how hard that is to do here. We're not going to put this piece on there. We're just going to see if, yeah, see it does not want to go quite, well, it's pretty close all the way on there. So it's just easier to go ahead and put a little bit of little bevel there. You can't see it anyway. It's going to go under the cane, but that gives it the ability to slide into the cane without a lot of wrestling. Somebody said, well, you can open the lid up. You got to be careful with that because you do not want to disfigure the outside of this channel because you can see that in the finished product. So that's something you really don't want to do. And in fact, somewhere along here, oh yeah, right here, I got a little bit froggy right there with the cane. And I've come back now and softly burnished that edge back because I don't want anybody to see any mistakes, or I don't know, not mistakes as much as they are alterations to the project to try to get it to work. So this piece here needs to come out. Let's just do it. Ooh, you know, after fitting one of these in here, I just dearly hate to take that out. Let me see if I can get that to fit. Nah, you know, it's just too much trouble. So after you work about 30 minutes to get one of these in, there. Okay, let me grind that real fast and I'll bring it back to you and you can see it. All right, now let me dry it off and I'll put it right in that. Now if it was a little drier you could see yeah, you can see that. Okay, I put just a little bit of a bevel right there. It actually could get a little bit more pronounced on both sides. Now you can see that. And that will assist you. Oh yeah, it just slips right in. And that's a little something that makes things a lot easier. Now, here, I can't get a bevel ground into that because it won't set. If that grinder head was up out of there 2 or 3, 4 inches, then you'd get that done. You can get along this edge here, and a little there, but you can't get up into that thing. You know, I'm thinking, you know, I just thought of something. You know, this might work. Let me see. This could be a problem for other people. Now, I don't know. I just thought of something that might actually work. Let's try something. Wonder what would happen if, now this may not work. I'm always trying, I've been doing this for nearly 50 years, and I'm always trying to come up with a better way. And I do pay attention to other people on the Facebook. Let me get you up higher here. On all this Facebook, let's flopped it down again. How to do this, how to do that. I got problems with this, I got problems with that. And I see stuff on there that applies to me. Okay. What I've done now, and I can't get this head up much higher than it already is because it's up on the top of the shaft already. So what I'm thinking here is, and you'd have to be squirting a little water on this thing, is I wonder if now I have got a cavity under here. Oh man, look at this. Man, I'm glad you saw this. I never even thought about this. Now I got to be careful because this wheel will dry out in a hurry. I could put a piece of Oh, let's do that. Okay, here's just a little piece of sponge, right? Okay, well, if this works, this is the first time I've ever done this. Doing it one-handed. I wish the heck I'd have thought of this about 15, 20 years ago. Well, here's a tip that works the price of admission. Oh, man. Oh, boy. Now, you can't imagine. I don't know anybody that does this stuff. That is a lifesaver. Now I'm on the other side. See, I'm just putting a bevel in this thing. Oh, man. You know, this is the gospel truth. If I had not done this video, oh, golly, that is so cool. All right. Major League. Okay, let's go back over here. All right. We're going to need to go up here. Now, you don't necessarily... Where's it go? Right there. You don't necessarily need to watch me do this, but let's go back and look at the end result here. Okay. And I'm going to take this apart and fix it. Not here. I won't waste your time with it. But I had just absolute devil getting that came around there. And in fact, if that's what I was talking about, I had pushed on the came and done everything to get it in here because I had no way to grind out that bevel on this inside curve. There's no way to do it because I don't have a grinder head 3 or 4 inches tall. And I have the ring saw over there, and I was over there trying to figure out how I could run the ring down the side of here and just cut a bevel. And that, of course, didn't work. And then because I'm standing here talking to you about how you can't do it, I thought, you know, wait a minute. That cavity right there is deep. And I've got the bit already up as high as it'll go. So I wonder if that cavity is deep enough that I could take this inside curve and be able to get down in that cavity up the side of that grinder bit and cut that bevel. Now that is going to make all the difference in the world in how this thing fits. And I'll be taking that one apart here in just a minute. Wow. Now I'd ground all the other sides, but I had no way. Oh, that is so good. Ah. Okay. Right there. Let me put this right here. Oh, man. Well, I don't know why after all these years, and I'm telling you, I'm thinking 25, 30,000 square feet of glass, maybe 40. I don't know. I never thought about how to grind out that inside curve. Now, you know, what do they say? Necessity is mother of invention. Normally, I don't have trouble with this because most of the time I'm using foil on this handmade glass for one reason or another. And I don't have trouble with the thickness because I'll just up in other words, if you were cutting a whole bunch of small pieces of this stuff, you might be on 3/16 foil. Well, this stuff's too thick for 3/16. So I keep 3 rolls of foil going, 3/16, 7/32, which is one more size above 3/16, and then quarter, which is one more size above 7/32. Each one of them a 1/32 of an inch progression from 3/16 to 7/32 to quarter. So on the thicker handmade glass, which we work a lot with, let me grab another piece of that. on this stuff, you know, it's just thicker. And so here's where you would change the width of the foil. If you were doing something that was real intricate, like wisteria or some real a panel with a whole bunch of little small pieces in it, you would shift up from 3/16 to 7/32, or whatever it took to get a pretty nice burnished bead of copper foil around this glass. Which, you know, I have a friend that's taking a stained glass class, and I'm not going to mention where. I don't even know the name of the person that's teaching it, but it's just a little, you know, beginner stained glass class, and they're doing little, you know, 11 by 12, 12 by 14 little basic pieces of glasswork to teach them the basics of how to do this. And it's all foil, of course, and nobody teaches lead as a beginning class, except my friend Michael, I'm going to say his name wrong, Rively. This Wabi Sabi. I hope I got that right. Wabi Sabi. I never can get that right. Wabi Sabi. It's on Facebook. Anyway, this guy teaches a really good lead classes out in, it's either South Carolina or North Carolina. And I think he has online classes, and then you can show up out there and go to a lead class. And man, this guy knows what he's doing. He's a great craftsman with a super good lead skills, and he teaches. So anyway, so they're teaching these people how to do this foil window, and the weirdest thing, they're using foil that doesn't have any adhesive on it. Now, I never even heard of that, and I've been doing this a long time. And they're tearing off pieces and burnishing it onto the glass with their fingers, and they don't have any adhesive on the foil. And I thought, you know, this is just my opinion here, and I'm not ripping anybody because I'm not even mentioning who this is. I don't even know the name of the place they're doing it. But why make anything for beginners harder than it already is? Because you don't get about 1 person in 10 that stays with this anyway out of a class. And if you frustrate people starting out in this, and, you know, they're fighting getting the first piece done, they get the first piece done, and then they go, you know, no, you know, I'm not going to fool with that. So, you know, make it as easy as possible when you're teaching somebody how to do something. Anyway, let's go back to this. So here, now, these pieces vary in thickness, and they get a little bit thick, and you can't get them in comfortably into there. Look at this. That does not want to fit into that lead came. It's too thick. Now, I'm also smart enough to know that you can buy lead came with different thicknesses here, but you don't want it too thick because you know the normal glass that you use will fit into this stuff. So I always just bevel the edge off of it, and getting that camera where you can see it. Bevel the edge off of it, and that gives you just enough for it to push on in. And that's how I've been doing it. But then yesterday, I'm working on this thing here, and I got to get this. There it is, right here. I'll tell you what, watch this. This will be the devil getting that off there, because I spent all kinds of time shoving it. It doesn't even want to come off there because it's on there so tight. So I'm going to pry that off, and if I have to, I'll make another piece of, you know, let's pull that off. The way that you would pull that off without tearing it up is you go to a place where you're going to have a joint anyway, right? Bury that tip of that in there and pull that loose. Boy, you talk about working that on there. I'll probably redo that one. Look, there's all kinds of dents inside of there where I was using a tool. Look at this. Where I was using that tool to push that on to there because I did not have any way. I didn't have any way to bevel that back. Now, once I go around to that grinder, pull that lid back off, that work table off, and grind this out, that'll just slip right in there, and I'll do away with that. It's a little bit, got a couple of dents in it. Nobody would notice that, most likely, but me. However, stuff like that just haunts me. So, I had no way to grind this out. I went over and got some different files and stuff, and I have a carborundum stone, which is what they used to use 1,000,000 years ago, and I'm trying to, you know, grind some of that down. You just can't do it. Now, if you had a wet sander, a belt wet sander, that might work. Couldn't be very wide belt. But what I have over there won't cost you any money. Just pull the table off, put a sponge behind your bit, and grind that out. If you have this problem. Now, if you're not using this handmade expensive glass and lead came, you're not going to have this problem. With foil, you just change the size of the foil. Okay, we've talked enough. I've covered the Strongline, I covered the colors, and we just that's how you discover tips. I give these tips to everybody. That's how you actually figure out a better way to get something done. I'm always thinking, how can I make this easier to do? How can I clean this up where I can get that lid on there real easy? How do I do that? And I'm sitting here, I could not figure out a way. Were it not for this video, I would not have figured that out. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I'm going to get out of here. I got a lot of work to do. And now we've got that figured out, we'll grind that out. And bear in mind, here we go again. There's this big thick stuff, same stuff. And then I got to come back and do the background here. That's all thick. So I'd be doing nothing. And back up here, back there, I'd be fighting this thing for the next 2 or 3 days. That probably saved me, I don't know, several hours just on this job. Plus, you're going to get a better result. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you have questions about leaded cane or anything associated with this glasswork, be sure and ask me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.